More than 2 decades ago, a 16-year-old kid would make just his 9th senior appearance for Everton, coming on as a substitute with only 10 minutes to go against Arsenal. That kid was Wayne Rooney, and unbeknownst to many of the people watching on at Goodison Park, they were about to witness the birth of a generational talent.
Rooney, instant control. Fancies his chances. Oh, brilliant goal! A brilliant goal! Remember the name, Wayne Rooney.
Rooney had just become the youngest goal scorer in the entire history of the Premier League, and at the same time ended Arsenal's 30-match unbeaten run, a morally heavy defeating loss which resulted in them dropping 9 points in the next 7 matches and losing out on the 2002-2003 English Premiership title to United by just 5 points. Which makes me sit back and wonder, who are the best Premier League super subs of all time? Lately, it's been Jhon Duran that's been catching a lot of attention. He's been consistently scoring hugely important goals for Villa coming off the bench. Just this season, he's already had 4 goals as a substitute, and 3 of them have all been winners coming after the 75th minute, including a goal of the month screamer against Everton on his weaker foot. And since Duran's debut on the 4th of February 2023, he's had a total of 8 goals off the bench, more than anyone in the entire league during that time frame. Even more impressive though are his minutes to goals ratio, second only to Erling Haaland. And looking even deeper into these stats, we get his shots to goals conversion rate. Over his entire Villa career so far, Jhon Duran has had 37 total shots and 9 goals, meaning every time he shoots, he has a 24.3% chance of scoring. These are absolutely mind-blowing numbers, considering that just 2 seasons ago, he was playing in the MLS. But Duran isn't even the current highest scoring player as a sub in the Premier League right now. That accolade currently belongs to Brighton's Danny Welbeck. He's not even in the top 10 for that matter either. So to better understand who's the best super sub, here's a chart that shows the spread between the best substitute scorers in the Premier League. The y-axis shows goals scored, and the x-axis designates average minutes per goal. So the higher and further to the left you are, the better sub you are. Here's Jhon Duran at the bottom with 8 goals and at around 70.8 minutes per goal. He's right behind the likes of Drogba, Aguero, and Lukaku. And this is where Danny Welbeck stands. Welbeck is ranked 6th best in Premier League history for goals off the bench with 15, putting him above the likes of Rashford, Michael Owen, Darren Bent, and Edin Dzeko, who are all tied with 13 goals. 8 of Welbeck's goals have come from his time at Brighton. 5 of them have been after the 80th minute, and 4 of those tied or won the game for Brighton. These types of numbers are certainly getting into super sub territory, but if we're going to mention an ex-Manchester United player who had a particular knack for getting goals from substitute appearances, then we're going to have to mention Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who sits just above Welbeck and Peter Crouch, tied for the 4th best super sub of all time, with Daniel Sturridge and Arsenal's Kanu, with a total of 17 goals scored. Ole's an important mention here because he made probably one of, if not the greatest substitute performances in the history of the Prem. Alex Ferguson and United travel away to play against David Bassett's Nottingham Forest, and by the 65th minute, they're up 4-1, and both starting strikers Dwight Yorke and Andy Cole have scored a brace and sealed the win for United. And what else to do but take off your main forward with 19 minutes to go? But my man Solskjaer really came in and said, "Good performance by our starting strikers? How about this? 80th minute, 5-1. 87th minute, 6-1. 91st minute, 7. 93rd minute, 8. Ole had just scored 4 goals in 13 minutes off the bench, and is still the only player to have done this in the Premier League since then, surely putting him into legendary status amongst the super subs. But there are still players above him. With 19, we have Chicharito. 36% of his 53 Premier League goals came from the bench, and Giroud is even higher up with 21 goals, the majority of them coming from his time with Arsenal. And far above anyone else, we have this plot right here. That player is former Spurs striker Jermaine Defoe, with 24 goals off the bench, making him the highest scoring substitute in Premier League history. Each of these 24 goals came across 24 different games, meaning that he also sets the record for most individual games scored as a substitute. Defoe is far beyond the rest of the field here in this category. In his first season at West Ham, he became their top scorer with 14 goals, despite starting the majority of his games off the bench. I mean, this man was a natural-born super sub. Of his 162 total Premier League goals, 15% of them came from substitute appearances. Defoe consistently found himself in the same situation. At West Ham, he had to compete with legend Paulo Di Canio for any game time he could get. Then arriving at Spurs, he had the likes of Dimitar Berbatov, Robbie Keane, and Darren Bent to rub shoulders with. He did the best he could by showing his finishing ability off the bench, and ultimately, he then went on to be the 9th highest scorer of all time in the Premier League. Fittingly, his last goal came as a sub for Bournemouth in the 92nd minute to tie the game against Watford. Defoe hands down wins the title of the greatest Premier League super sub just based on consistency over anything else. But let me show you something interesting. Notice that Jhon Duran is the player furthest left on this list. That means he has the best goals per minute average out of everyone here, with a goal every 70.8 minutes. If he keeps up this scoring rate off the bench, he's on track to set a bunch of new records. And just look at the names on this list. Drogba, Aguero, Giroud, Defoe, Lukaku. These players all had to start somewhere. So we could be witnessing the birth of one of the Premier League's greatest strikers of all time. Or another Adam Lafondra. Only time will tell. But one thing is for sure. Ollie Watkins, you better watch your back.